X-Men 97 is absolute garbage. I don't know who is running this show, but they missed harder than a politician trying to sound cool to young people. The quality of the animation and the writing is abysmal, but the biggest problem by far is the glaring lack of weird moans. I watched through the entire season twice, and I can't recall a single instance where anybody let out a weird, unearthly moan. It's astonishing how much of a downgrade the voice acting is taken, and the biggest victim of this has gotta be Charles. He used to make noises that made it sound like he was busting the fattest psychic nut known to man, and now he's just boring. This show is terrible, negative 10 out of 10. Okay, so by now you've probably figured out that I'm joking. Yes, what everybody's saying is true, Marvel finally pumped out something of quality, X-Men 97 is pretty good. And despite certain changes from the original, the show is still of a fairly high quality that I'm pretty satisfied with.
Making the mother of all omelets here, Jack. Can't spread over every egg. Why won't you die? You can't hurt me, Jack. Nanomachine, son.
With that being said, the show still has a couple of problems. It's not exactly a 10 out of 10 like a lot of people are saying. But before we talk about the various issues, why don't we talk about the good things the show did? The animation is pretty great. I remember being a little wary of it at first, but it really grew on me, and I can't find anything blatantly wrong with it. The voice acting is also good, and it's great that they got back some of the old voice actors, even though it's pretty clear sometimes to tell that they're forcing their voices to sound more like they used to. That especially goes for Wolverine's voice actor, but it's fine. Barring a few outliers, the characters are also pretty great, and you know I gotta give them props for finally including my favorite Marvel villain. To my knowledge, Mr. Sinister hasn't had this significant of a role in anything outside of the comics since the original X-Men series came out, so it's really nice to see him in a show again and actually being an active character, and I thoroughly enjoyed all of his appearances, except what happened to him at the end. I don't really want to talk about that. Anyway, last but not least, the fight scenes. The fight scenes are absolutely fucking mint. They're dynamic, creative, engaging, and don't feel like they're holding back. There are so many moments throughout the show that are just really fucking cool, and that's nice to see. And now with that said, let's talk about the things the show did wrong. First off, I feel like the show messed up a couple times when it came to the characters, and not to name any names or perhaps groups, but some characters I could really do without. To get into specifics, I don't really like Rogue. Besides the fact that she and Magneto were fucking, which is honestly just gross, I don't really like how she was characterized in general. In the original show, it was pretty clear that her and Gambit's feelings for each other went beyond physical touch, and even though they would like to, they were still fine without it. But now all of a sudden it's some big issue that has her bouncing back and forth between him and Magneto. To be honest, I've never really understood why this whole thing between them is an issue in the first place when power dampening collars exist, and they literally know the guy who made the power dampening collars. And the way that she joined Magneto after he EMP'd the planet just really doesn't make any sense. Like, he 100% slaughtered countless people across the entire planet when he did that without a second thought. Why the fuck would she not only join him after that, but fight against her own family who were just trying to get him to turn the world's power back on? This characterization of Rogue just rubs me the wrong way. But it's even worse seeing the amount of real dumbass people who keep spouting that Magneto was justified in what he did. Moving on, I found that the dialogue is kinda iffy sometimes. There are several moments where a character says something and I'm just like, what? Why would you say that?
Make them mind your weather, sister.
And them weather your mind.
My God! Truly, he is the future incarnate. What is he talking about?
But by far the biggest problem with this show has gotta be the writing. Now don't get me wrong, the writing is pretty good most of the time, but there are some episodes where the writing feels pretty rushed, and others where I just fell asleep. Like, I couldn't give less of a fuck about the Jubilee episode, it just felt like boring filler. And at the same time, so did the life-death stuff, especially since Forge and Storm's relationship is the most forced thing in the entire show. I don't think they interacted more than once in the original series, if they interacted at all. And the short time that they spent together in the life-death episodes, mixed with the fact that they have like no chemistry just makes this whole relationship thing that the show is pushing kind of boring. I feel like these episodes throw off the pacing of the season, but there are also times where the show kind of rushes, and I feel like the best example of this is the last episode. They managed to set up a good amount of stuff throughout the season, but at the start of the last episode, they kind of just ass pull the Phoenix out of nowhere, use her to solve like 90% of the main problem before they make a new one. And that's only within the first couple minutes of the episode. It just didn't really feel that satisfying. Besides that, I guess the only other gripe I have about the writing is the amount of cameos. I like a good cameo as much as the next guy, but sometimes it felt bogged down with them. Like, I get it, there are other characters in the universe, you don't have to show fucking 20 of them. And that's pretty much it. The show is pretty solid, even though it had a couple problems and things that I could do without. The show's not absolute perfection, but it's certainly not trash. I give it a pretty firm 8 out of 10, and I hope it gets better as the seasons go on. Thanks for watching.